Right, on to the next trainer on this rather long road. If I was actually in a hurry, I would have gone to Saffron from some other route like Celadon, but I'm doing this partly for the sake of grinding off these poor trainers. Sure, I probably don't need to grind this much to get ready for Sabrina. I believe she was in the same level range as Koga. A little hard for me to say for sure, though. As a side note, does anyone know why they decided to keep Koga's name sounding Japanese, but changed everyone else to various names that feel like they'd fit in an American setting? I know, technically speaking, it doesn't matter all that much, but still, it always kind of seemed a bit confusing to me. Considering Kanto, Johto, and Hoenn are all based on Japanese locations, you'd think more of the names would be Japanese. But I suppose part of the thing is due to localization during the 90s. Another part is probably the fact that they wanted to make sure the puns for the names stayed pretty reasonably close. Since, well, a water girl named Misty only really works in English, a rock guy named Brock, again, only works in English, and Sabrina the Teenage Witch is only an American reference. Those aren't exactly the kinds of things that would mean all that much to a Japanese audience. They hit some of the right notes here for the American one. Some of the other names, like Erica, why make that change? Not really complaining, it's just something that struck me at this particular random moment as we're grinding our way through another nameless trainer. Though is grinding really the right phrase to use when there are only a limited number of trainers in the game for us to deal with, but infinite supply of random encounters exists in every field of grass and every cave. Definitely don't see the appeal of Mirror Move, just like I don't see the appeal behind Whirlwind and Roar. Great! Now I feel guilty for using Dig on Marbleback if he was gonna learn Earthquake on his own that quickly. Not that it would have done Kohaku any good, I was gonna give him Earthquake as soon as we found that TM. I suppose I could have given Garm Dig, but I'm more focused on him getting Flamethrower in the future and don't really give a damn what else is in his move pool aside from Bite, which he already has. It's also more than a little annoying to keep track of what everyone else is gonna learn since it changes with each generation. And sometimes when I'm on Bulbapedia, I forget to select the specific generation I'm looking at here. Right, that makes 511 wins for the team as a whole, and we've got a lot more battles to go before this clip is done. Hell, I'm probably gonna have to cut this one off abruptly, just like the previous one. Is it just me, or do they use the triumphant music way too often in this game? But then I suppose that occurs for a lot of role players, regardless of the age or subgenre. If you sit through a given playthrough long enough, you're going to get sick of any soundtrack, even an excellent one, because some of the same tunes are played over and over and over again. And it's not like this game has a whole lot of other things to distract our ears with. And it seems we're going back to the Pokemon Center again at the end of this fight. It's downright depressing just how many Pokemon Center visits we've been going through just for the sake of Garm. And I know a decent amount of that is the fact that I refuse to buy antidotes for various reasons. I swear, it's like the moment that bug type stopped being a thing, we kept running into everyone with a frickin' poison type or something. I mean, sure, I know we just finished with the poison gym, but, while we have two members of the team who are completely immune to being poisoned due to the fact that they are poison type themselves, it's still a very annoying to deal with sort of situation here. And as much as part of me thinks that Neo, Phyllis, and Kohaku should be the ones dealing with all these poison types, The fact is that the enemy trainers at this stage of the game are the best source of experience we're going to get right now. The sheer difference between trained Pokemon and wild ones in terms of levels starts to feel pretty noticeable around here. And that problem is going to become even more obvious when we have to prep for dealing with the Elite Four after working all the way through Victory Road. Kind of wish I could say I'm looking forward to our trip to Victory Road, but frankly, I'm only looking forward to dealing with the remaining gym trainers. I know, technically, after getting the 8th gym badge, we don't see the credits, but for some reason, in terms of attitude, I always end up feeling like the trip to the actual championship feels like the post-game material. Not any of the stuff that is actually post-game, like going after Mewtwo in Cerulean Cave. Partly because the story is so bare bones in the first generation, and we spend so long trying to get all 8 badges, that once we get them, it feels almost academic to me to go to the Elite Four and beat them. Partly also because, well, the Team Rocket subplot ends by the frickin' 8th gym. Seriously, for those of us who don't actually go for the whole gotta catch them all mindset, you damn well have a team you're attached to by the time you beat Giovanni. And there are probably few, if any, moves you're gonna want to learn by then. So the only things you'll be trying to improve at that point are your Pokemon stats, which are already extremely good to the point that you kinda need to let the opposition be quite a few levels above you just to be a worthy challenge. Much less deal with all the poor bastards in our way who have Pokemon that are under-leveled compared to us. Hell, I don't think we're over-leveled compared to what we should be at this point in the game, but it's hard not to feel that way. Again, that feels like the sort of advice we should have gotten extremely early in the game. Why in the hell did that show up over a dozen hours into the game here? Hell, if that sign wasn't there, then I doubt anyone would really give a damn. Great, so Garm essentially one-shots a wild Pokemon, and he still immediately has to go back to the Pokemon Center. I am so sorry, little guy. You really don't deserve to be such a running gag in this playthrough. And I feel guilty that's what you feel like, since you're the runt in a rather badass team. A runt who is still far more dangerous than Neo or Takanabori started out as. But what can you do, since you're behind them right here and now? They grew out of their weakness phase quite a long time ago, whereas Garm is the last unevolved member of our team, and he will stay unevolved for a good while longer. Well, at least he's still capable of kicking ass to a certain degree, even when he's paralyzed. Right, seems that turn was a waste for both of us. Holy crap, looks like Garm might actually be able to solo this trainer despite having a crippling status effect. And it looks like this Fearow is determined to take that potential moment of badass away from Garm. Sorry for jinxing you there, buddy. have wished that Horn Attack and Fury Attack had different sound effects at least. Alright. That makes 517 for the team as a whole. Garm specifically got up to 49 before things really started to look bad for him there, and Kohaku just managed 78. We've got some damn high numbers at this point, understandable considering how many parts into this LP we are. Just a bit of a shame that the only battles I'm looking forward to seeing at this point are going to be the ones in Sabrina's gym. Everything before that is going to be training that it's going to be hard to fully pay attention to since we've done so much of it over the course of this game. And I probably already mentioned this before, but I can't help feeling some measure of fatigue just thinking about future Pokemon LPs since they generally follow this formula rather closely. Sure, later games are going to have a bit more plot than this one as we go further on, but still, in a lot of role-player games, training is something you do when you know there's going to be a big threat later on, so you and your characters are as ready for that as you feel is reasonable. And I'm sure I mentioned this before. Yeah, but I kind of wish there were ways to make your Pokemon stronger other than just having them battle or shoving various kinds of drugs down their throats, because in this series, Pokemon training is literally your entire job description. Well, if I didn't, then I've been doing the wrong game for quite a while now. I know it's not really the sprite's fault, but when I see that appearance for the person they describe as a beauty, I don't consider it a compliment. Not that I've got anything against women who can confidently tear people a new one, just that her expression made me think of the sort of high school girl who bullies others to the point they think they're worthless. Probably among many sprites that will get changed to fit the world's intended atmosphere when we get to the second generation. However long that's gonna take us anyway. Nice to see that Garm has finally leveled up. Growl all you want, this is still a rather one-sided fight in our favor. It may be over for you, but we've got plenty more to do before we're done with this clip. Oh, I'm sure you learned a lot about them through sheer osmosis, at any rate. After all, you live in the Pokemon world, one of the bare few fictional worlds that I would genuinely like to live in. So many of the other worlds in various bits of fiction that I enjoy tend to be either absurdly vicious, or end up going through so many major cataclysmic events when the story takes place that it just plain doesn't look pleasant to go there. Granted, that's part of why those stories interest me, the various conflicts going on and the various heroes struggling against villains and monsters. But Pokemon, for the most part, is pretty peaceful. And as entertaining as I find various kinds of conflicts, I'd actually want to live in a place that is this type of peaceful. Right, already wishing I'd just given Kohaku that electric attack in the previous clip. Not that he's helpless against water types, especially not the quality of water types we're likely to run into against most of the trainers outside of our rival and maybe Lorelei of the Elite Four. He can just power his way through most of what we're running into, and the harder ones I've got some anti-water options on the team to deal with. It's just one of those things that feels like it means more when I play against myself in the stadium, where you actually do need a bit more of a competitive mindset to give yourself an easier time. Seriously, with how we've been hitting most of these trainers we've been coming across, does it really feel like we need to do much of anything other than just brute force our way through most of the obstacles around here? Because using Phyllis to finish that fight made me feel pretty downright guilty. Maybe that's why Ash in the animated series doesn't really pay attention to the type chart when he battles. He's way too used to fights where it really doesn't matter so much, so when it does make a difference, he ends up caught flat-footed. Wait. It's called Silence Bridge? Feels like a bit of an odd name to me, especially since so many of the other places in this region are named after colors. Probably because in most role players, especially Japanese ones, someone casting silence means you can no longer use magic. But since the only way to cause any damage is via using the magical creatures all over the place, silence just isn't a thing in Pokemon. Everyone is generally pretty loud and proud from what I can tell, so why name a place Silence Bridge? Not that there's anything special about the bridge itself or anything memorable that's gonna happen when we get there. It just felt worth talking about the name of the place for a bit, as we start dealing with trainers who are even weaker than the ones we've been pounding on for the most of the clip here. It's not like we're gonna run into any worthy opponents out here anyway. Yeah, definitely hard not to feel guilty about beating down enemies like this when things are this one-sided. Good work on the clean sweep there, Kohaku. At least she seems more impressed than disappointed. Again? We're 53 clips into the damn game! We should not be getting dialogue that sounds like it would have fit into a tutorial back in the opening few hours of the game. Huh. You don't usually see a good-looking girl associated with that type of rat. At least I don't think that's generally the case. Typically, we see the girls grab some of the more explicitly cute ones. But then, I've known the occasional girl from this world that considers even Pokemon like Grimer to be cute. So I suppose it's different for everyone. But, still, kinda feels easier to claim that Pikachu the electric mouse or Cyndaquil the fire mouse thing is cute, rather than the purple rat that doesn't have any signature power outside of a super strong bite. Maybe that's just me. I can't help feeling that calling the move Bite kind of undersells just how brutal it is for a serpent with a mouth that massive to be able to potentially swallow his opponent in a single gulp. Not that any of the games, hand-drawn sprites or otherwise, would ever really show how absurd it is for a creature that much larger than its target to use a move called Bite. For one thing, showing something that downright visceral might get the game higher rated than the usual E for everyone. And for another, you've got the fact that the game has to try to be balanced to some degree. Balanced in a way that an electric mouse has a genuine chance to defeat the massive water serpent instead of having to worry about being absolutely crushed if the snake just falls down on top of it. But then I suppose balance isn't something that should be considered in any way when we're 11 levels above our opponents right now. And we have how many EV points? I don't know. I do not know. So I do not know just how much stronger we really are from everybody else on average. Or when the non-player characters all have Pokemon that have the absolute bare minimum of stats for their Pokemon at a given level, while the player has so many various things, from the data on the enemies we've beaten along the way, to the gym badges we have so far, to any drugs we have given our Pokemon at this stage to improve their stats. Yeah, definitely one of the reasons why plenty of people say that the mainline Pokemon games are too easy. In most games that I can think of, the AI gets some unfair advantages to make up for the fact that they aren't complicated enough to actually outthink the player in a given situation. In Pokemon, the player has the deck stacked in their favor most of the time, and there is no difficulty setting where you can change that, which means quite a large chunk of the game ends up feeling insultingly easy. Specifically, the mid to late game. It's the early game that can be the most brutal for players in this series, and we left the early game behind quite a long time ago. I'm sorry, sir, but I'm afraid you don't want this fight, as the horrified screams from just a few steps from you should have implied. At least, I think she should have been screaming through some of that. After all, she had a good-sized team, and Takanabori just snacked on them. Hell, we didn't even see a level up when all 5 of her Pokemon were wiped out. Have I mentioned it's getting to the point that it's hard to consider the average trainers we run into on the road to be our peers in any way, shape, or form at this point? Well, I suppose we might have been feeling something like that on our way to the 4th gym. Now that we're on our way to the 6th, it's pretty prominent to the point that I can't ignore it if I tried, and unfortunately, I doubt that even losing in Pokemon Stadium is going to take care of this almost elitist feeling here. Hell, assuming I haven't miscounted at some point, Takanabori is up to 98 wins. And it's just gonna keep on growing as this clip goes on, apparently. Place your bets. Will he hit 100 before I decide this clip's gone on long enough? Apparently he is, since he didn't level up on win 99. Welcome to the triple-digit score, big guy. I'd offer you a snack, but I'm not sure what massive sea serpents would really eat other than their enemies. Do people design cookies massive enough for that kind of gaping maw in this world? And it would, of course, be rather awkward to feed him some local fish, since most of those fish are Magikarp, the very species he grew up from. And regardless of if he'd feel awkward eating a bunch of feeble fish that have the potential to eventually become another Gyarados, I certainly wouldn't want to encourage cannibalism in any Pokemon that I train. If they absolutely have to eat another Pokemon for the sake of not starving, I would try to avoid forcing a Pokemon to eat something in its own evolutionary line, at the very least. As screwed up in the head as I can be at times, there are limits. Not only have I found a few, I used one to get Kohaku up to Nidoking. It's certainly less annoying to evolve something with a special stone than it is to trade them. Though speaking of annoying, both of the evolutions that Eevee is going to gain for the second generation have such strict requirements, it's too much hassle for me to ever bother, even if I like Umbreon. I'd ask if they ever simplified it, but then we haven't gotten to the entry in the series where that kind of evolution based on time of day even started. Hell, we haven't even gotten to the entry where time of day exists yet. Good work on 52 wins, Neo. Yeah, how is a good word for it when you've never had a chance to fight back? Anyway, that seems to be about as good a point as any to start winding things down here. Hope I managed to make the commentary feel fun, even as I'm personally getting tired as hell of the first generation of Pokemon. Until next time.